Hello, my delicious co-creators. Lilou here on the Juicy Living Tour. Today, I'm in Montreal, this beautiful city in Quebec, sitting next to a gorgeous goddess. Oh my God, we're finally meeting.
No, finally, Lilou. 2 years, I think it's been, maybe a little bit more since we first connected. So it's so good to be here, driving up from Boston to be with you.
Yes, thank you for accepting to do this interview. I know that this is a bit different for you. Usually you interview people, and now you're being interviewed on this book that people are really loving, and this is doing really, really well right now. Are you excited?
I'm excited. I got to tell you, it's a little bit of a learning curve being on the other side of the microphone. You know, we've talked about that before, but the whole journey has been exciting, and it's really just, it's been a synchronistic journey for sure.
I know that I want to hear all about it and how this came about and what you had to go through and why you chose those different themes in it and all of that, because it's exciting. These are exciting times. Tell us about your view of this kind of new world or new paradigm, or because I know that you want to put this out for a good reason.
I do. Well, I think big sigh. We're going through some extraordinary times. You know, as I say, there's some people that have a name for it. We've called it the shift. We've called it, we've passed this meticulously calculated turning point of 2012. And although I think a lot of us are kind of wondering what happened, I didn't really see anything going on. But there are a lot of people that sense that there is a shift going on, including me. I hasten to use labels, but there's something that is a little off kilter. But also there's something burgeoning and emerging that I think a lot of people are starting to feel. It's being translated through challenge and crisis, but also opportunity like we've never seen before. And I wanted to get that down in an anthology and kind of express that in the book.
Why did you choose that title?
Conscious Musings. I'm a muser by profession, but I think that's just the way I am. And I think one of the points that I wanted to make in the book is that, Lilou, we're on such a hamster wheel, most of us, for good reason, trying to keep up the pace. And because we're on this sort of proverbial hamster wheel, we're in a mode of reaction, not reflection. Yeah. Musings, contemplating are things that are just kind of what do I want to say, a luxury these days. And my contention is that if we're really going to transform, we've got to get off that hamster wheel, get out of reactive mode and back into a point of reflection, whether it's on small things or life-changing things.
Are you saying that we're not playful enough? Maybe we get a bit too serious sometimes here.
Company excluded. And really, I mean that seriously, because I think so many people have seen how you have just kind of, and you've been honest about your sort of the tumult that you've gone through, but lightness of touch will do a lot of things. And your bubbly personality and your just love of life and the courage of your convictions of going after what you love have shown so many that we need to do that. And there had to be a point of reflection for you, a point of contemplation to get to that point, right?
A lot of people, that I interview and that you interview talk about this suffering. We go through, it seems that we have to go through this suffering. Is that something that is coming up and that you talk about?
I don't know why it is that us humans, we have such a tough row to hoe. It's a very interesting thing. It seems like it's through challenge, through tribulation that we learn our greatest lessons. I don't know why that is. I wish I did, but such is the case. And I think that when we realize, I just posted an article recently that, see if I can remember one of the quotes I used. The magic is embedded in the madness, the crystal in the crisis, and the diamond in the dust. Yeah. If you can look at it that way. I call it synchronicity. Something really awful will happen to someone, and one person will look at it as an awful thing. The other person will say, what can I learn from this? Or what's going on here? So all of that sort of included in the book, Conscious Musings.
Yeah, I like that you talk about also of the paranormal that is actually quite normal for some others. Tell us about that. Are you quite attracted by this topic for a long time, or how did it come about?
I've always been. It's exciting. I mean, it's not novelty. Look, the paranormal, I've always called it a misnomer because I think it's really normal, not yet understood. And it's not that I'm just talking about the paranormal in the book for the sake of here it is. I weave it into this whole idea of most of us have had an experience or 2 or 10 of paranormal phenomena in our lives, but because we don't have anywhere to put it, we shrug it off. I'm saying that during these very, very unprecedented times, the universe is nudging us to pay attention to these things. I bring it all the way back to the original premise that it's going to take, in order for us to transform and realize potential, we need to contemplate and reflect. And these sort of anomalous experiences that we have, whether it be intuition, synchronicity, seeing ghostly remnants of someone or whatever, which we've all had, what are they telling us about who we really are and what we're really tethered to? So that's really the context that I bring it up in the book.
I want to hear more about your personal experience and what brought you to this place, now where you're at in your life and wanting to write this book. What is the kind of things that you had to heal or to go through or witness?
Well, I think, first of all, there are lessons all along life, but one occurred after the book had been written. And it's a very long story, so I'll see if I can sum it up pretty well. The chapter that I write about this experience is called Not So Fast, Practice What You Preach. I mean, look, this book is not so fast, Alexis. You better put your money where your mouth is. This book is all about inspiring others to transform, and yet, serendipitously, I found myself in a bit of a pickle, a financial pickle, in September of 2013. My husband and I both were, I will not bring you to the weeds, let's just say it got ugly. The bottom dropped out. Now here I am about to publish this book. I'm on top of the world. I spent most of the summer really penning and refining the words to the book, and then this happened. And so I went through, I've never had a nervous breakdown, but I have to say I was pretty close to whatever a nervous breakdown is. I think I was pretty close to having one. Lilou, I had to pull myself up by the bootstraps and say, now listen, Alexis, are you really going to practice what you preach, or do you have the courage of your convictions? And obviously the answer for a while was like, I don't know if I can do this, but invariably I called on the universe. I said, and I got on my knees and I cried and I said, please help me, show me what I need to do. How can I put what I have been preaching to others for so long to work for myself to get ourselves out of this situation? And so I enlisted the help of the universe. I know that may sound a little woo-woo to some.
That's the best.
The woo-woo is good.
But the universe, talking to the universe. Oh my God.
The universe knows us so well. And I've said for so long, if you engage the universe and follow your passion, it will more than meet you halfway. And so that's what I said. I said, if I commit to being open to your messages, as metaphorical as they may be, will you help me? And invariably the answer was yes. And so I talk about in the last chapter all of these weird, paranormal, beautiful, and even funny synchronicities that would guide my husband and I out of this tumultuous period. And I could tell you one if you want to hear.
Sometimes it does feel unfair when we go through those. Mm-hmm. It's like, why me? Why right now? After all this work, after really opening up, why?
I can't lie and say I didn't ask that question, but shortly after I asked the question, I knew that there was a reason. My husband and I, thank goodness I have the type of husband that will sit and reflect with me. And, we've gone through some tough times having our own business for over a dozen years at this point. We've had our dips and curves. And each time we would run into issues, we would both admit, as ugly as it is, it's fascinating. Because if we were to be looking on the outside in, it would just be a whole nother experience. So we knew that there was some meaning that was to be derived from this experience. Yeah. So I can tell you one story if you like.
Yes, please.
This is a great story. It was August. I'll see if I can sum it up. It was August of 2013, about a month or so before the bottom dropped out. I'm sitting on the phone with my cousin, overlooking our backyard, which is a beautiful view and a wooded landscape beyond it. And I'm chatting away on the phone, and all of a sudden, this bird comes flying out of nowhere, headed straight for my nose. Now, obviously, I'm behind the window, so it didn't hit me, but it smacked right into the window as hard as can be. Well, obviously, I screamed. My cousin said, "What's wrong?" I said, "A bird just hit the window." You don't see that too often. And of course, I reasoned immediately. It was probably seeing the reflection of the wooded background in the window, but it hit the window nonetheless, and I'm sure died. Okay. So I get off the phone with my cousin and I say to my husband, because I'm too squeamish to look, the patio below, I'm sure the bird was there dead, or at least very injured. So I summoned my husband to go look for this bird. He went downstairs. He came back and said, honey, there's no bird down there. I said, come on, you're kidding me. I saw this bird. I mean, Lilou, it smacked. It startled me because it came out of nowhere. No bird to be found. Well, because I tend to be the type of person to look at incidents, off-color incidents like that with some sort of meaning, I said, there's got to be some purpose to this. As a matter of fact, I had been talking to my cousin, if I can recall, about some of the things that were kind of topsy-turvy. The big thing hadn't happened yet. But so I knew it had some significance. Fast forward to September. I'm looking back. And remember, I had engaged the universe and said, I am willing to but recognize when these synchronicities happen. Immediately, my mind went back to the bird incident. And I thought, oh my gosh, that bird hit a wall. But even though it should have been dead, it still got up and kept flying. And so that means that we're going to get up and keep flying as well. That was probably the initiation of this synchronicity highway. I'm getting a cramp in my foot. So excited about this story because it's profound, actually. And I knew at that point, it was interesting because I had that epiphany after I kind of made this contract with the universe. You have to understand that synchronicity can even, you're recognizing synchronicity may happen after the actual synchronicity takes place. So we had a whole set of metaphorical aha moments that really commandeered us, navigated us out of this crisis, which invariably we got out of.
Yeah, I saw this part where you're talking of animals in your book, huh? So this is...
Yeah, well, a lot of the people that know my work know that I've spent a great deal of time on the idea of animal reincarnation. The impetus was the fact that, my feeling and my husband's feeling that we have a cat that we feel is our previous kitty named Paws, now called Clover Paws. In fact, I've given a talk on the whole idea, the phenomenon of animal reincarnation, probably one of the most popular topics I've covered in my years of research, and have subsequently done some interviews on that. But yeah, that's another fascinating thing if we look at it. I mean, reincarnation, all of these things are very elusive. We don't understand how they work. But I say that's no excuse not to investigate. Let's take a look at what's going on here.
How do you make the difference between what's real and what's not? Because there's this whole material life, it seems, the matter, and there is the invisible. How do you get to know it's not your imagination, that it's real? Where do you check in? Because this is an important conversation, to have in this new paradigm, I think.
It's not black and white. It's not black and white. That's a loaded question. It's an excellent question, but it's a loaded question. I wish I had a pat answer for it. I don't. Let's use this analogy. I always talk about the universe. You can call it God. You can call it all that is, whatever you'd like to call it. This omnipotent energy. This energy, this, what I like to call universal GPS system that we all have. You don't need to upgrade it. It works for all makes and models of humans. But here's the caveat. It does not speak our language. It doesn't differentiate between matter and immaterial, tangible and intangible, visible and invisible. You're the one that has to learn its language. So I say, and I don't say that to be sarcastic, but it isn't black and white. We've got to learn how to read the shades of gray. There are a lot of shades of gray. I call that intuition. It takes time and it takes practice, and it can be frustrating because we're physical beings. We're so used to living our life and delineating past, present, and future. And yet most of us in this new thought space are starting to get acquainted with the idea that there's a continuum. There's no demarcation. So there's no demarcation between material and immaterial as well. In fact, the universe, that language that we talk about, often speaks through the physical. We'll use matter to convey its message, even though it's coming from the invisible.
Like the bird.
Like the bird. I have so many more stories like that. I'll tell you another one real quick. Dragonfly. Oh boy, there's so many. 11:11, I can talk about that. So many. Bottom line is it was a stack up of synchronicities. Yeah. During this same period of crisis. I had been editing a book for an author in Malaysia. The book hasn't come out yet, so I can't talk too much about it, but I was ghostwriting part of it, and I edited the book. The book is about dragon energy, of which I was not really acquainted with. So going through this process of editing the book for the author, I got to know really a very, very sacred yet elusive part of our dragon history, not fantasy or fiction, but a very serious component of it. Well, so that got me kind of thinking about dragons more and more. Well, simultaneously during this crisis, my husband and I would, we'd take little breaks. We'd sit outside in our swing and just kind of breathe and try to get through our process. Well, Lilou, imagine there's a tree that kind of sits over this swing. And this was during the summer, late summer. Every time we sat on that swing, a dragonfly, I can't swear that it was the same dragonfly, but it sure looked like it, would perch on the same branch about a minute or so after we sat down. Now, interestingly, the book on dragons really talks about the wisdom of dragon energy. And so I took that, seeing that dragon as sort of a guidepost. Many of the signs that we got during this period were reassurance signs, but they were there. Synchronicity is one of those things where it is only synchronicity if the experiencer recognizes it as such. And so I had learned to hone my gaze. So anything like this, the bird, the dragonfly, seeing 1111, we can talk about that too. That was in there too. But things become magic, and the universe will see you more and start speaking to you more. And those are the types of things that were happening for us.
I love the 1111, and I know we're not the only one to see that everywhere. I know you guys see it. Tell us about it.
Boy, I wish I knew what is going on, boy. I wish I knew. I can tell you that story. My husband and I, notice I'm bringing my husband up a lot. I drag him into we both go through these things together, which makes it even more sort of corroborating.
He's open to this.
Oh, thank goodness he's very open to it. The 1111 thing, and when I say 1111, it wasn't just 1111, but 111, 311, 511. The point is 11 after the hour. We both started seeing them about the same time in 2005. Consistently. Now, meanwhile, I hadn't been aware of other people seeing 11 or 1111 on the clock. So I proceeded to Google it. Couldn't really find that much, but I was starting to see some things. We both admitted to each other, this is way beyond the, chance. Something else is going on here, but what, we have no idea. Well, fast forward a few years, if you Google 1111 now, I think you'll get upwards of, what did I find? Billions of hits on people trying to figure out what's going on. I know everybody probably wants some kind of answer as to what it means. I don't have it. I know it means something. It is some sort of a prompt. Well, my point is how it kind of folded back into this crisis. We started seeing 1111 2005. It eventually began to wane. We would notice that it wasn't happening as much. I would check in with my husband. You seen 1111? This was a few years ago. Now it's kind of stopped. It seemed like on cue in September, we both started seeing it again. And I didn't say anything to my husband at first. I started seeing it again. And I said, okay, shout out from the universe telling me to pay attention again. So we got the dragonfly, the bird, there's more. Now the 1111 thing. I finally ended up asking my husband, honey, would you by chance be seeing 1111 again? He looked at me and said, uh-huh. So that became sort of a guider. Now, again, what was it telling us? I don't know. We've heard the gamut that 11 is a time prompt, a foretelling of crisis, or a confirmation, or a gate of, a spiritual gate to walk through. It could be all of those things. But here's the thing that I paid attention to, making this contract with the universe to understand its language. The moment things started to ease up for us, right around Christmas time, this past Christmas, we stopped seeing 1111. I did. I then went back to my husband. I said, honey, hoping against hope, he would say the same thing. You still seeing those 11s? He's like, not as much. We both sensed something was about to break. Break. Yet another synchronicity I could tell you about. My goodness. I have one more if you want to hear it.
Go for it.
It just goes on, and I still never cease to be amazed. I've been working in this business a long time of transformational information. I still never cease to be amazed at how brilliant the universe is. Let me give you this last one. And this just happened about a week ago. In fact, it was the day you and I were talking on email. The night before, we had awful rains. We've had a lot of rain in the Boston area, and we have a little leak in the ceiling. That leak led to a big piece of plaster falling from the ceiling. I went upstairs one night, or that night, I guess it was, or maybe the night after, to check something or change my clothes into my pajamas. I look up and I said, oh my God, the ceiling broke. It didn't break. I mean, it didn't crash in, but a big piece of plaster broke off. A few hours later in the night, my husband and I were sleeping. All of a sudden we heard crash, bang. My lovely kitty that we were just talking about decided to go into the guest room and knock over a plant of mine and break the pot, the beautiful blue and white pot that I loved. Number 2. Wake up the next morning, I go downstairs to have coffee, and I'm looking at the counter in front of me where there is a marble sort of cutting board or pastry board. It's broken. I said, okay, wait a minute. What's going on? A marble about that thick, broken in 3 pieces. I'll tell you what happened later. But the bottom line is, I said, okay, 3 is a charm here. First it's the ceiling, then the cat breaking something, and now a marble slab is broken. What does this mean to me? I could look at it, and I had just picked up an email. I think we were confirming our interview. That morning I was having coffee looking at emails. I said, okay, how am I going to take this? I could look at it. I can be paranoid and say, oh my God, something bad is going to happen. Or I can say, you're trying to tell me, well, either way, you're trying to tell me something. Breakthrough. Break through ceiling, break pot, breakthrough marble. It's breakthrough time. Everything has been breaking through since my book went, you know what? I don't want to jinx it, but bestseller, breakthrough. Yeah. I looked at it as breakthrough.
It's quite for some people that are not into the synchronicities or what have you, they might see it, or yeah, that's a lot of stories put together, but that's really that's how you live it. That's how a lot of people, millions of people, actually live their life around this planet now. It's empowering ourselves from the inside out. It's coming through. It's transforming our life. It's making sense of it in a very empowering way. It's like it's because otherwise, what happens for a regular human being that is not open to these energies? It could be devastating. It could be a nightmare for weeks and weeks and weeks.
But you know what? We always have the choice. It can be a nightmare, and I think unfortunately there's still too many people that look at these things as nightmares when they can turn into dreams. Yes. It's just a matter of shifting your focus. That's all. That's really the basis of this book.
It's a change of perception. It's an openness. It's a willingness to be smitten.
Absolutely. And I think when you do, the universe will say, aha, I see you now. Now we can talk. Yeah. It's that easy. Yeah. And furthermore, on a really serious note, whatever we're going through, Lilou, if it's the shift, it's not apocalyptic. I don't look at this as catastrophe driven, although I think a lot of the choice is ours. It's necessary. I don't know that we can kind of look at these things as just novelty anymore. I think the universe is literally beckoning us to pay attention, to start learning this other language. It's become vital at this point.
I think we have this huge potential, this big potential we're just starting to express and feel. I know you mentioned the heart math. What did you discover there? What made sense for you there?
Yeah. Well, I've known about the Heart Math Institute for years. I've written about them, included them in some of my research for, 15 or more years. Fortunate enough to have gotten to know some of the leaders of the Institute, like Howard Martin I've interviewed. We've become good friends ever since. They're just doing stellar work. I don't know. I think it just resonated when I first learned that the heart is more than a blood pump. It has juice. It has intelligent juice, right? You know about that.
The heart is juicy.
The heart is juicy. After all, it's the first organ that develops in our body. But what they have discovered is that there is literally a mechanism in that organ, that physical organ, that is thousands of times stronger electrically and magnetically than that of the brain. Now, that's not to dismiss the importance of the brain. I mean, we talk about the work of Greg Braden, and he's a big advocate of bringing together heart and brain, heart-brain coherence. But the heart is really where it's happening. And some people contend that the heart is really what's connected to that spiritual realm that allows us to understand what synchronicity is. It's a wonderful thing. And I talk about in the book some meditations that can be done, heart-based meditations. I know that you're really tuned in with your own wonderful work in meditation and feeling into the meditation. It's not just about recitation. It's about putting your hand on your heart. And when you're, especially if it's a visualization, something that you want to materialize, don't just recite, I want to go to Jamaica. I want to go to Jamaica. In my case, I wanted an iPad. I talk about that. But you know what I did? I put that heart meditation to work and I started feeling what it would be like to have an iPad at the time. This is like 2 years ago, because I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. I got an iPad 2 weeks later, unbeknownst to me. And it's not just about getting stuff, but there is something to the heart thing. It's fascinating.
And fascinating, the law of attraction, The Secret. I mean, years ago, Oprah had this huge show on The Secret. She actually flew. I'm sure you've been totally practicing or noticing this law of attraction. Where are you at with that? Have you incorporated it in your life in other dimensions, or is it something that you focus on, or just where are you at? Because I feel like a lot of people years later have maybe I'm wondering if it's still there, present for a lot of people or not after all these years of The Secret.
Yeah. Well, you talk about the law of attraction, and we look at it as something that we endeavor to invoke. But law of attraction, if it's really a law, we're doing it anyway. The question is, are we doing it consciously or unconsciously? Most of the time, unfortunately, we're doing it unconsciously. Like attracts like. Consciousness creates reality. That's happening anyway. The law of attraction, including attracting things that aren't so cool. But again, yeah. But I think if you understand somehow that we do indeed create our own reality by our thoughts, our feelings, our words, our deeds, we can get control of that. That's what I try to do. It's, again, not black and white, lots of shades of gray, lots of practice, lots of failures. But I think if we can getting back to that mode of contemplation and reflection, we'll think before we act, and then we can attract what we want.
A last little thing about this I see the subtitle is Contemplation to Transformation, Life and Realize Potential. To realize this potential, what is the must have or must see?
What is the must have?
Like, what is the thing? If we want to realize our potential now, knowing that we will.
Start contemplating. Not to be facetious, but that's exactly what I'm saying. Get off the hamster wheel. 5 minutes a day, Lilou. You're a big proponent of silence, as am I, with the frenetic paces that we keep, the travel that we do. We've got to get off the hamster wheel and get quiet. I'm not even going to say meditation because that can intimidate people. Let's just call it silence. We need to get quiet and start to contemplate possibilities. Contemplate. That's really the first step in realizing. If we're not reflecting, we're not realizing anything. We're just reacting to what we think is going on. So it's really just a matter of a shift of focus, I think.
Thank you so much for this delicious moment. Oh my God, thank you.
That we're looking into each other's eyes and not talking on Skype or...
She's here.
I know, she's here.
Thank you so much. And congratulations for this beautiful book that just came out. Thank you.
Appreciate you.
And we appreciate you, my delicious co-creators. Oh my God, we send you so much love from beautiful Montreal, don't we?
Montreal. Bonsoir.
Much love.